Hi everyone, this is Carol Keller, independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator from Illinois in the United States, coming to you today with the second of my two cards using the Dandy Garden suite of products as part of my April Suite of the Month class. What is the Suite of the Month class, you ask? Well, each month I feature a different suite of products from one of the Stampin' Up! Catalogs. I designed two projects. If you purchase a bundle in the suite or the whole suite, you will get a kit from me that includes two projects that you can make right along with the videos. I also offer a class on Zoom, or as things are opening up, a live class. So if you can't make the class, you can certainly see the projects on my YouTube channel like you're watching now. So if you're interested in joining the Suite of the Month, let me know, contact me, and we will make that happen. But without further ado, I'm going to turn my camera around so that we can get started with today's project. Here are the components of the suite. First, we have the Garden Wishes stamp set, and it coordinates with the Dandy Wishes dies, which you see here, and I have cut them out so you can see what the components actually are. There are a lot in the set. There are two bees, and the bee is one of the stamps in the set, so you can cut out two of them at once. And you have dies to cut out both of these flowers, plus some other different ones that coordinate, some leaves, and you can create a 4-piece flower that is very dimensional and very pretty. So those are the dies that come with the set and what they look like. Another part, the other bundle that is part of the suite is the Dragonfly Garden Bundle, which comes with the Dragonfly Garden stamp set and the Dragonfly Punch. And there are a couple of different stamps that you can stamp and then cut out with the punch with the bigger, to make the bigger dragonfly. Another component is the Dandy laser cut paper. It comes with two sheets. This is one, so you have a variety of card fronts plus some embellishments to use. And this is the other sheet. It's got some coordinating dragonflies and again some beautiful tags and layering elements that you can use for cards. It also comes with the beautiful Ladybug Trinkets, which look like this. Adorable little additions to your card. Another embellishment is the Mossy Meadow braided linen ribbon, and I know you probably won't be able to see it on camera, but it is very braided and very pretty. It's got some nice texture to it. And last but not least is the beautiful Dandy Garden Designer Series paper. It comes with a variety of designs. These dragonflies can be cut out using the Dragonfly Punch. And here is the other side with coordinating colors and designs. And although I don't have them, another couple of components of the suite, the Dandy Garden Memories and More card pack and the companion Dandy Garden Memories and More cards and envelopes, which pair together very simply to make beautiful cards, along with, of course, the rest of the suite. All right, let's get to our card. So I just went through the stack of papers and picked out two that coordinated, another two that coordinated. We're going to use a different two for the one that we're doing today, but the design is the same. So I will leave one here to show you as we work, and then we will get started with the card. So for this one, I am just using a card base in Misty Moonlight. And because of that, we're going to put a white sheet inside. This is an A2 card. So I have just cut down an insert to go inside that's just smaller. So this is, the outside of this is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. This is 4 by 5 1/4. And if you're working with an A4 card, just decrease the size of this card by 1/2 centimeter on each side and it will have the same effect. So we're going to leave that handy because we're going to do some stamping first. And just to show you, I also have cut the Designer Series papers already. So size-wise, this is 2 inches by 5 1/2 inches. If you're using an A4 card, you would cut it 5.3 centimeters by 14.9. This piece is 3 1/4 this way by 4 1/4, or if you're using an A4 card, 8.5 centimeters by 13 centimeters should be the right size for you. But we will put those aside for the moment because, as I said, we're going to do some stamping. And we will do the inside. As you can see on the inside, I stamped the dandelion and a dragonfly plus a sentiment, and that's what we're going to do in this case. I'm going to stamp the flower in Misty Moonlight. Move that out of the way a little bit, just toward the bottom. And on the other two cards, I overlapped the dragonfly, but I don't think I'm going to do that in this case. And I'm going to do the dragonfly in Bumblebee. But before I do that, I'm going to bring the sentiment in and do that also in the Misty Moonlight. May good things grow all year long. And I'm going to put it over here because we're going to have the dragonfly there. And then on the, well, we've got this ink though, we're going to do for our sentiment on the front for True Friend, and we're going to do that in Misty Moonlight also since it coordinates with the Designer Series papers. So we'll get all our blues done. Oh, and also the envelope. We're going to do the front of the envelope with the dandelion. So we'll bring that back in. And stamp that on the front. And so now we are finished with the Misty Moonlight. And we'll bring in the Bumblebee. And for that, I'm just going to do the dragonfly. And move that out of the way. And I think we'll have the dragonfly just above the flower. Like I said, I had it overlapped, but you sort of lost something in the translation there, so I think up above is a little better. And that is all our stamping. So we're going to start our assembly. I'm going to put this inside right away so that the inside will be done. And for that, I'm going to bring in my Stampin' Seal. And the inside is done. And then some more Stampin' Seal for the outside. And before we put this piece on, we're going to bring in some of the braided linen trim, the Mossy Meadow. And I goofed that up and put the adhesive on before I remembered that, so that's why it's curled up a little, but I just pulled it off and we will fix that. Little mistakes are okay. And we're just going to bring it around and tie a bow on the front. And then place it where it goes on the front of the card, because I already have Stampin' Seal on the back for my little boo-boo of putting it down first. And then to tighten the bow, I'm actually going to untie it and I'm going to put a glue dot underneath where I want it to tie so that it'll hold down the two ends. Press it right there, and that makes it easier to tie the bow. You don't need a third finger to be, or a third hand to be holding that down to make it tight. So that's a little secret. And then we've got our bow. And I also usually add another glue dot or two to make sure that the bow stays in place, because we don't want it to come apart in transit. So we need one on that side too. I can't pull this one, but I can pull this one so I know it needs a glue dot underneath. And I'm just pulling it off with my fingernail and slipping it underneath to hold it in place. No one will be the wiser, but our bow then stays in place. All right. Oh, that's right. And I did forget one bit of stamping. So we will bring in, I've got a scrap of vellum for our flower, for our dandelion. And so for this one, I'm bringing in Smoky Slate. And I'm using this smoky slate rather than the misty moonlight because I really want the color that I'm putting on to be what the feature is rather than the outline. And so I went with smoky slate, stamping it on my vellum. And then the most important thing to remember is that because it's on the vellum, it takes a little while to dry. So I sped up that process by using my heat tool to set it and dry it. And so it just takes a few seconds. So because of that, I'm not going to do that on camera. I'm going to bring in one that I've already stamped, heat set, and cut out. And I am going to bring in a little scrap of matte here because the blends that I'm going to use sometimes bleed through, and I don't want it to bleed through on my matte underneath. And I'm going to bring in my blends, and actually for this one I just used the dark Daffodil Delight, or the dark Mango Melody, and so I'm going to use that for this. Took the light one out of the way, and I'm not doing any shading. I'm letting the stamping kind of do the shading for me because we'll see those beautiful lines underneath. And I will tell you, if you don't heat set or wait until it's completely dry, what will happen is when you use your blends, those lines are going to disappear. So either heat setting it or making sure that it's completely dry will keep that from happening, and then you keep the detail in the flower. And now I'm using dark and light Mossy Meadow. So I'm using the light one for the stem. And then I'm using the dark one for the detail, and it's easiest, I'm going to use the more pointy end. It's easiest to do that first when you can see it better because it is light with the smoky slate. So I'm just going over some of the lines that are that were stamped on. Not necessarily all of them, but some of them, because again you won't see it so much. So add a little bit of detail with the dark and then come back in with the brush end of the light. And you do, even with this, get a lot of blending of the colors, and they kind of disappear a little bit, so keep that in mind. You might need to go back again with the dark, so I'm being very careful and intentional in the way I'm coloring it so that those lines stay. And actually I am going to come back in again just a little bit here. It's just because it's on the vellum, it works a little bit differently. They act a little bit differently. And you're not going to see much of it anyway because it's going to be behind the ribbon, but that's okay. So we'll bring that back in. And then all I did was just sit it behind the ribbon, and I'm going to put a glue dot on the back in the center of that flower because I know there's going to be something on top hiding it, which is going to be our little dragonfly. So we are going to just slip it in here like that. And I may just add just a little bit of the light again. It's a little bit too defined. There's sort of a happy medium in there. And it should be okay. I'm using a very light touch. And I think it will be fine. Yeah, that looks better. I don't want the lines to be very crisp. I want them to be more subtle, more of a watercolor type look. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is bring in, we're going to use a little more ink, but not stamping necessarily. We're going to bring in our dragonfly from the Dandy laser cut paper. And I'm going to put him in the corner over here. And I'm going to show you, because I saved them in doing the other cards, this is what you're going to end up with. We're going to put color on the dragonfly, but I actually kept the outlines, the outline on purpose, because I will use them on another card along with this one. So my sense is to make a contrast, I'd like to do it in the Bumblebee, but I'm thinking for this card it's actually going to look better in the Misty Moonlight, so that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to bring my Misty Moonlight ink back in. Move this up out of the way a little bit. And I'm going to bring in my sponge dauber because that's what I used. And the sponge daubers are great. I used this for the other Dragonfly and Misty Moonlight, and then I simply ran it under warm water and kind of pressed it like this to get the ink out. So it's much lighter than when I used it with the Misty Moonlight, and it's ready to use again without transferring color to my finger, as you can see. But just to be on the safe side, I use this only with blues. I have some dedicated for pink or red, but then you don't need as many sponge daubers, which I like. See, it gets very dark, but that will all come off when you just rinse it under warm water. And all I'm doing is holding it down and making sure I get good coverage with that Misty Moonlight on the Dragonfly, and also making sure I have a good edge, because like I said, I'm going to use this on another card. I'm going to use the negative on another card. And you could even probably use repositionable adhesive, but I don't think it's necessary. I just use my fingers, and I didn't get too messy, and it comes together very quickly, as you can see. It just takes a few seconds, and voila. I have one that I can use for another project and one that I'm going to use on the card. So I'm going to bring that back in. I'm going to fold up the wings. You can use your fingers or you can use your bone folder to make him so he looks like he's flying a little bit. And then I'm just going to put a little dab of glue a little dab of glue. I think that's the best idea. A little dab of multi-purpose liquid glue on the underside. You don't need much. And maybe I'll bring in my silicone craft sheet just to be on the safe side. That way I know there won't be a mess at all, because I just want a very little bit, just tiny, even that is too much what I've got on there, just little tiny drops of glue on the body only. And we're going to put him right there, right on the flower, so that helps hide the glue dot also. And you just want to hold it down for a few seconds just till it kind of catches. And that's it. And then all we have left is our sentiment. And I've already stamped this, so we're going to grab the double oval punch to punch it out. And I've done it, like I said, in Misty Moonlight, and it's on Bumblebee so that it coordinates with the Designer Series paper. And then I'm going to bring in the scrap of Misty Moonlight for the top one. And I'm going to layer those. And I'm going to use some dimensionals on the back. And in this case, I'm almost to the end of the sheet, but of course I use every part of it. So I'm going to cut a strip. That will go on the back, actually maybe a little longer. And put that strip on the back, because you always want to make sure your dimensional goes across the middle as well to hold it up better. We'll move it maybe this way. And then last but not least, I'm going to bring in one of the Ladybug Trinkets, and that I also put on with a glue dot. So I'm just going to lay it right there. It creates really good coverage. It pretty much covers the whole back of the Ladybug. And we will pop that over here. And our card is complete. Quick, easy, and a great way to use up your Designer Series paper. Like I said, you can bring in whichever color combinations or combinations of Designer Series paper that you like. I'll bring in the other one that I showed again. So they all look a little different, but like I said, it's the same idea. On this one, I used the other Dragonfly that comes with the laser cut paper, and again colored it, but pretty much the same idea for all of them. So that is it. That is your card for today. And if you wanted to, you could also line up the designer series paper edge to edge, but I thought it added a little more interest to do it this way. Personal preference, whichever you prefer. Thanks so much for joining me. Again, if you're interested in the Suite of the Month class and you don't have a demonstrator, please contact me and I will hook you up. Thanks again, everyone. Bye-bye.